welcome back to Year in Review. We'll be briefly playing and talking about some games I did not cover when they were out. This is not a review, and it's hardly close to my normal first impression series. Let's get started. In 2014, developer Teon, with the help of publisher Reef Entertainment, created Rambo the video game. Easily one of the worst games of the year. It was your perfect awful game. Bugs and glitches, awful animations and character models, atrocious gameplay, and even terrible audio with the music constantly looping the same few songs and heavily compressed audio dialogue from the films. It was a shockingly terrible product. Eventually, it did get some updates and free DLC to the developer's credit, but the base game was so awful that no one really cared. When I found out that the same team was making Terminator Resistance, I was expecting complete garbage. But I ended up being pleasantly surprised. I don't think anyone expected this game to be decent, but it is. It's a first-person shooter with a big mix of mechanics, RPG elements, lockpicking, hacking, a dialogue choice system, crafting, stealth, and most importantly, it's not on rails like Rambo was. Terminator Resistance takes place in the future that all the films always reference, with the exception of Salvation, which already took place in the future, but that movie was shit, so there's less need to talk about it. Now, these films always showed this nightmare apocalyptic future in flashes, where man is in fear of these machines that are slowly killing everyone, but this is all done through the lens of an 80s sci-fi flick. So, monitors look like boxes rather than big widescreen displays we have today, and everything has this big, plasticky, boxy charm to it. Some of the vehicles from films of the time period look like the Elon Musk truck. So let's get into the game. You play as a Resistance member who needs to deliver a message to Commander Baron of the Resistance, because your entire division was wiped out by a single Terminator, and to make matters worse, you've been marked for termination. So the plot involves you linking up with the Resistance and figuring out why you're so special. On the way, you meet characters that have dialogue choices that actually impact what happens later in the game. Throughout the game, you're going to be completing missions in these semi-open areas where you can gather materials for crafting, usually through lockpicking doors or blowing holes in walls with grenades. The shooting is surprisingly decent. Guns have a bit of kick to them with some sound effects favorable to the films. There's a small variety of enemies to fight, and there's various weapons to fight them with, as well as alternative ways to deal with them, such as noisemakers and stealth kills. The game has some good pacing to it. It's fun to run and slide around and shoot machines. If there was a surface level improvement I would make, it's that the graphics don't look great and the explosions from destroying machines just aren't very satisfying. There's also some stealth elements added to sneak around. It's done okay enough, with plenty of room for error. However, as you can imagine, with all these mechanics for a budget game, it all comes off as very shallow. This game would have been a lot better if they limited ammunition and made the levels a bit bigger with better enemy placement, so that it would be more like a survival horror. I never feel like I'm going to run out of ammo despite being in this survival apocalyptic setting. I have stacks of health packs and the game is pretty easy, and changing the difficulty doesn't really fix much. And because you don't have armor or shields in this game, if you try to crank up that difficulty, you're going to be dying in seconds without being able to respond. This is while you're holding hundreds of bullets on you. Now when you're fighting the T-800s, the ones with the human appearances without the flesh, 2 arms, 2 legs, the game does get a bit more interesting with a run-and-gun element to it because they take a lot of extra hits to take down, but doing actions like headshots will do more damage, and if you sneak up on them with the right tool, you can insta-kill them. This makes it so that it's really fun ducking and dodging, running and gutting. It creates this new dynamic to the game because they don't shoot very fast. The problem is that the AI isn't great. If you duck behind cover and pop out, the enemies don't react fast enough, even if you're standing right there. Sometimes they just stand about 4 feet in front of me while I'm crouched behind some cover, and they won't pursue me as long as I pop out very quick to shoot them and then duck out. They just kind of stand there and don't know what to do. Now, there's some other negatives I have too. The game aesthetically doesn't look too bad, as the soundtrack and graphics are capable of conveying good atmosphere for certain levels, like the hospital, which was really well done. But the animation quality of some of the characters is super cheap looking. The game aesthetically doesn't look super pleasing either. It needed more of that 70s or 80s retro future charm to it, kind of like Alien Isolation had, and instead it just looks like a repainted shooter plucked out of any generic Unreal Engine 4 game. There's also a lot of low quality textures, and the FOV is super narrow unless you modify a config file, which is what I've done here. Now, even though I have a lot of complaints regarding this game, this is actually still a fun little budget game. It's really worth it if you can get it on sale and if you're a fan of the franchise, because the shooting is still solid, The running around and gunning in certain environments can be fun, you know, finding certain bits of ammunition, doing side quests is not too bad. Now I should mention that if you have no interest in the franchise, don't pick this game up. And if you do have an interest, I'd still get it on a sale. For 20 bucks more, you can get Metro Exodus, which is way better. Way better. And there's a bunch of retro shooters that have come out this year that are even cheaper, that are still really fun to play. Now, no game really has all of these elements in it. That is 40 bucks right now, but you really don't have a lot that makes this game really stand out. It's a well put together Unreal Engine shooter. That's what you should look at it as, with a nice Terminator theme over it. It does have a baller soundtrack though. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. We'll have more reviews coming out throughout the month. I'm out.